Moving on to the next item, which is for information only, presentation on the Metro New Bus Network. We're joined today by Chairman Garcia as well as CEO Tom Lambert. Tom, are you making the presentation?
The chairman's going to introduce it.
Well, you can do it right there if you like.
So, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Gilbert Garcia, and I'm the chairman of Metro. And a couple of things. When we were appointed by Mayor Parker, me and others, we had a lot of housekeeping to do when we were appointed back in 2010. We had to address financial issues, transparency issues, all kinds of issues. But one of the things that was vital was the ridership numbers were totally unacceptable. And we looked at the ridership, and to give you some benchmark as to why we redid the bus network, in the year 2000, the day-to-day bus ridership numbers were approximately 95 million boardings. By 2010, when we arrived, they were down to 55 million. Well, we all know if that was earnings of your company, well, your stock would be plummeting. And our stock was plummeting in the stock of public opinion. So we had to do something different, and we looked at it, and one thing we noticed is the number of buses in the network in 2000 was 1,450. When we arrived, it was down to 1,250. So one of the things that we did, it led to working with our partners at the county, working with our partners at the multi-cities, and passing a successful referendum in 2012 that got more resources for the bus network. But as we dug deeper, we also realized that the bus network is the same network that we've been using since the trolley car days of the 20s. In other words, the bus network had not kept up with the new job growth, the new population movements, and all the other things. And so we went on almost a 2-year effort to really study where are people today, working with the community. We had multiple outreach meetings, and we really changed the whole process of having to come downtown, transferring to go somewhere else. We had much more of a point-to-point grid. We brought back the day pass. We're doing all of these things to really modernize the bus network. We're doing now 7-day-a-week service. We're doing later service to make it much more reliable. And it's already working. We rolled it out just a few months ago, and that's why Chief Lambert's going to go through it with us all. But I wanted to give you the background and set the platform that we had to do this, because the ridership numbers were unacceptable and the taxpayers deserved better service. Chief?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. And Chairman Costello, thank you for the opportunity to appear before the Transportation Policy Council this morning. I want to begin by thanking all of our regional partners, because as the chairman said, this was not done in isolation. So if you look at the transit providers in the region, we had Harris County Transit on our stakeholder advisory group that helped us frame this, Fort Bend County Transit, Connect Transit, Colorado Valley Transit, Missouri Transit. We wanted to make sure we got everybody involved that could give us advice and counsel in moving it forward. But this really began from the board's really commitment to say, let's take a different look. They gave us a clean sheet of paper and said, if you were going to design a transit network that had to adapt to the changing conditions of employment, where people were living today, where people needed to go for jobs, where people needed to go for education, where people needed to go to visit their family. How would the network look? And they basically said, go out. But they gave us policy direction. If you're looking at a region that continues to grow, and everybody on this council knows, we're blessed because we're in a growing region, a fast-growing region. We had to take a look to see how do we really adapt to meet that. And they said, be very creative with it. But they gave us policy direction that said, if our mission is to get more people to look at transit as an option to help travel throughout this region, then we need to grow our ridership. So 80% of our operating budget under their philosophy is to grow ridership in this region. But there's also for a need of those that have a transit dependency that we had to have a coverage element. So 20% would be focused on coverage to make sure that we got those folks that needed coverage, that were not in a high dense area, that they could connect to a broader network to get there where they needed to go. We also heard a lot from the community. It wasn't the community telling us we need to expand rail. What they said is we need to improve the bus network. And so they gave us a lot of input that said, how do you make it better? And as the chairman said, It's not a 5-day-a-week network, it's a 7-day-a-week network. Our region is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, 366 days in leap year. And so how do we really give this as an option for people to use this as a travel choice among all the mobility options in the region to get where they needed to go? And that's what we really worked upon. A 3-year process that really said from the conception of thought to implementation about 3 years. But the board made it very clear to us. They were not in a hurry to move a plan without input from the community, without input from the elected officials, without input from the users of the service. So throughout the 3-year process, we were focused to go back out to the community to further fine-tune what we were going to implement with the plan the board approved that we implemented on August 16th. That was part of the 3-year process. Several things came from that. Our old philosophy used to be we didn't put a bus shelter in place until people demonstrated they were riding from that stop. But what we heard from the community is, you know, if you really want us to ride transit, it's got to be comfortable. Maybe you should have a transit stop before we choose. So we've really taken a real foundation look at how we have a network in place that makes it comfortable for people to want to use transit, that makes it safe for people that want to use transit, that makes it convenient for them to use transit, and we think we will see a continuing growth of that ridership. I want to give full credit to the stakeholder working group, 120 members representing the transit agencies in our region, representing social service agencies in our region, representing the city of Houston, transportation. Harris County had folks on this to make sure we began to look at what that network needed to be and how we are to set it up to track performance of the network. So it really engaged everybody working together to make sure we got input, a series of community meetings, whether it's super neighborhood councils, working with elected officials, having meetings throughout the region to get input as we walked along the process to make sure we were moving forward. Then with a network that's expanded, making sure we have the talent within the organization to pull it off and to implement the network. So we hired 209 full-time people, 67 part-time people to the degree we put boots on the ground. Street teams to go out and talk to our customers. Here's the network today, here's the new network. How do you understand that? How do you make sure that we're getting them to understand the connectivity? And all hands at Metro to understand the importance of what we were doing and why we were doing this for this region. And making sure we continually made it easier for people to understand how to use our system. Our message was clear, our message was reinforced. We used every vehicle we could think of, and I mean vehicles as well. Putting information on our buses, putting information on our trains, putting information at our park and ride lots, putting information at rail platforms, putting information at transit centers, putting information in the hands of our customers to make sure that they knew what we were doing before we implemented the network. Looking at making sure we talked to management districts, school districts, social service agencies, elected officials, so everybody knew along the way where we were going and what we were trying to accomplish, again, to make sure we were getting their feedback and their advice and counsel as we were rolling it out. Making sure that our customers knew what we were doing before we rolled it out. So I want to compliment the information technology people at Metro. They did a tremendous job of doing a couple of things before we even roll the network out. The first thing they did, we put a dual trip planner on the website. So a customer could go to that trip planner and could take a look at their current old bus route, and then they could go to the same trip planner and take a look at the new bus route before we ever put it on the street, before we ever rolled it out. And then we wanted to make sure that when we rolled it out, people would know when that next bus is coming.
No, I don't think anything.
Everybody has a hesitancy, particularly in using bus service, because you think it's coming, you hope it's coming, but you're not really sure it's coming. What we wanted to make sure is that we could let people get comfortable to know it's coming. So we brought in a next bus texting feature. Every one of our 10,000 bus stops in the region have an individual ID number. You can go to a short code on a text phone, doesn't need to be a smartphone, input this ID number of that stop, Put in the bus route you want to ride, and it'll tell you the next time that bus is going to come by real-time information. If there's a glitch with GPS technology, as sometimes happens, it will give you the static schedule. And it's making people more and more comfortable to know the reliability of the service, and we're seeing extremely positive results by that very low-tech feature. Implementation, I am extremely proud of the Metro organization for pulling this off. I'm going to give you a little history. 10,000 bus stops, about 14,000 different pieces of information that had to go down from an old network and up for a new network before we rolled it out. It's almost like taking a light switch. On Saturday, August 15th, we turned the light switch off. On Sunday, the 16th, we turned it on. The old network went away, a new network rolled out. 22 million pieces of collateral marketing information went out through this process from all forms. Social media. I want to thank the local news media. They helped us tremendously putting this information out. Channel 2, Telemundo, Univision helped us by doing phone banks so we could have our customers call in again before we ever roll this out. So this was really a commitment to not only internal communication of what we were doing, but external communication of what we're doing. Why did we do it? As the chairman said, to grow ridership, to give more mobility choices and more options for people to travel throughout this growing region, and how we work with our regional partners to make sure that transit's fitting into all modes and all strategies to have a multimodal approach. Making sure we took care of our current customers so we did not lose any current customers while we had the opportunity to grow new customers. And we think within the first 2 years of the new bus network, and this is the first year of a 5-year plan. It's not a 1-year plan, it's a 5-year plan. We think we'll grow ridership about 20%, although the chairman keeps telling me it's going to be more than that going forward. But I can just tell you, and I thought there was one more slide, and I apologize if not. I'll just give you some numbers of what we're just seeing in September. And I must say this because the reality is we're setting a new foundation for a network, so you really can't compare the new network today in September 2015 to what it was in September 2014 because the networks are different. The route structure is different. The connectivity of bus interface with rail is different. But what we're seeing just in September is about a 4% overall growth in September 2015 compared to 2014. What we're seeing with the commitment of 7-day-a-week service, and we knew this going in, that we were going to put more service on Saturdays, and we're going to put more service on Sunday, and we're seeing about a 28% increase in ridership on average on Sundays, and about a 12% increase in ridership on Saturdays. We believe the network that we implemented in August, that will continue to refine going forward. Because now we're seeing the opportunities to do things more, because now we're seeing overcrowded buses. From a transit standpoint, that's a good problem to have. How we now manage that going forward, we'll do some service changes in January to make sure that the overcrowding conditions begin to blend out. Making sure that we do a better job of headway managing as we're managing our fleet and taking a different strategy. It's not just running by a schedule. With technology today, we can really manage the fleet of how we can expand buses when we need to, how we need to condense bus routes when we need to. So we'll continue to move forward as we go along. So, Mr. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity this morning. That's what we're all about. I want to again conclude by saying we thank all of our regional partners. What we have to do to move people in this region is to have a multimodal approach. Metro's transit piece, Metro's HOV hot lane piece, all the things we do with infrastructure improvement to get better access to transit is all part of that regional partnership, and we want to thank our partners for actively working with us in that regard. We're more than happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Tom.
I just have a great work. I think that that's really forward-thinking, very innovative in the way you've approached it. You know, safety is a big issue, I think, for increasing ridership. And I've noticed it on some of the bus shelters. It looks like you need to enhance, or somebody needs to enhance the lighting. And my question is that an expense that Metro has to undertake, or is that a City of Houston obligation.
I'm always good. I may
And
let
if
Jeff
so,
Weatherford
and
answer
so
that
how do we
question.
get the
Where's Jeff?
funds to do that?
I could
I
tell
thought I
you,
saw Jeff Weatherford. The answer is the city of Houston works, and we work with CenterPoint in installing the poles. I think once the lighting's done, the city then I think picks up the cost of that. Is that correct? Metro is also expanding that opportunity where we may have a situation where you don't have a good street lighting situation. We're now using solar powered lighting as well. So you're seeing some enhancements and lighting improvements more directly inside the shelters as well. So it's a combination of both. But I will tell you that the board has made it very clear to us that safety and security is a priority to make sure as we move forward, we continue to expand upon that.
And I would make the case too, Chairman, that shelters really haven't got the attention that they should.
Sure.
And, we have 10,000 bus stops, only 2,000 are sheltered. So that's part of the reason why the referendum will bring in more funds, because remember, one shelter brings in, on average, additional 30 boardings. So 100 shelters is about 1 million boardings a year. And so that is why shelters are critical. So not only do we need more of them, better lighting, but we also got to upkeep them, make them clean.
Yes.
Because even if you have a shelter, if they're dirty, people won't go there. So there's a whole new emphasis on just shelters in general.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the question.
if not, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Tom, thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you very much. We offer you utmost success in the program.